Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Good morning, guys. How we doing?
I don't know if we anticipated that last night.
I don't know about you, but I barely slept. And then when I did wake up, my first thought was, did I dream that or did that really happen? And I think it really happened.
That really happened.
That really happened.
Here we go.
There are good games and then there are great games. And that is what we saw last night. The Ravens topped the Browns 47-42 in a truly wild finish last night. Cleveland was down 14 points in the fourth quarter, but steamrolled back to take a 1-point lead. Meanwhile, Lamar Jackson had to leave the game with cramps for almost 2 whole drives, but from backup, Trace McSorley went down. Lamar came back out of the locker room to throw the go-ahead touchdown on a 4th and 5 conversion right after the 2-minute warning. Baker Mayfield would then tie the game with a minute to go. Justin Tucker kicked a 55-yard field goal with just 2 seconds remaining to give the Ravens the lead for good. It was wild. It had everything. It had the drama. Shannon, was this the game of the year?
Skip, I don't know about the game of the year, but it was the greatest fourth quarter and the greatest 5-6 minutes of a ball game that I've seen in a very, very long time. And given what Lamar Jackson did, so Skip, if you want to say because of what Lamar did, being in the locker room for those final almost 2 drives and coming back cold, Skip, he didn't come back at the start of the drive. He came back on 4th and 5.
4th and 5.
So if you want to say, Skip, so
no,
okay, with that being the storyline, yes, it was the game of the year. Considering what Lamar Jackson did going into the locker room, and if you want to say he had a Paul Pierce or a Willis Reed moment, whatever you want to say, given the
I'll go Willis Reed because Paul Pierce was a little phony to me. The wheelchair moment, yeah, let's not do that.
Given what he had to do in that moment, Skip, it was unbelievable. 35 points in the fourth quarter alone. And whatever Lamar was doing, Baker's like, nah, I'm not going to be outdone tonight. And Baker just kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And you look at, and Cleveland's got to be thinking to themselves, Skip, hold on, bro. We just put 500 yards. We scored 42 points. Baker threw for almost 400 yards. And we still lost? Yeah, because the heroics of Lamar Jackson. Skip, neither defense could stop the other, the opposing team's offense. And I'm surprised at the way Cleveland's defense approached Lamar Jackson. Skip, they just kept letting him get out of contain. And it was the exact same thing, Skip. I think it was a Sunday night about 2 weeks ago. We saw the Oakland Raiders blitz. They let Mahomes get to the right side. And the one thing you don't want to have happen is let a quarterback get to his dominant arm.
Yep.
He's a right-handed quarterback, so if you blitz and make him go left, you don't let him get outside because now you're at his mercy. Mahomes did the same thing. He got outside, he bought time, found Travis Kelce for a touchdown. And what did? They blitz up the middle. They let Lamar get to his dominant hand. He gets outside. He finds Hollywood Brown, who had just dropped a pass earlier on 3rd down. Skip, unknown what might have been the play of this game that's not being talked about was the 3rd down completion to Willie Snead by Trace McSorley.
It was big.
Because it gave Lamar Jackson, because I'm not sure John Harbaugh is going to go for it.
Good point.
I don't think he's going to go for it in that situation, Skip. I think he's going to punt it and probably have to trust his defense. But that gave Lamar an opportunity to come back into the ball game, Skip, the back and forth. Cleveland had 19 more plays. They possessed the ball 3 more minutes of time of possession. But Lamar Jackson was getting touchdowns and going 75 yards running the football. Skip, this is unheard of.
Yeah.
And again, another 200-plus yard day running the football with Lamar Jackson. Skip, if you don't take his legs away, it's hard for them to beat you. It's hard for you to beat the Ravens if they don't turn it over. But Skip, if Lamar Jackson could ever get his arm, I'm not saying 85, 90%. If he could just get his arm to 65, 70% of his legs, he's going to be in the MVP conversation every single year. And he can do it because I think we're going to talk about Josh Allen, Skip. Josh Allen completion percentage is 16 points higher than what it was his rookie season. It's 10 points higher than what it was last year. So this is something Lamar can, now he's going to have to prove his mechanic because he missed 2 throws, Skip. You can't miss those throws. You got to have them. But last night, Lamar Jackson showed you something. Baker showed you something. But it was just Lamar's time to just upstage Baker in a big moment.
All great points by you. I don't even know where to start. This was fairy tale. It was storybook. It was better than fiction. I thought at the end of the game of one of my all-time favorite writers, whose poem is the reason the Ravens are called the Ravens. And he's a Baltimore native, or he was, named Edgar Allan Poe.
Yep.
And he wrote a poem called The Raven.
And the Ravens' name, his name is Poe.
That is correct. And he was known for incredibly creative writing, most of it in the areas of gloom and doom. And death and destruction, macabre. But if he had written this plot and tried to sell it to Hollywood, they'd say, no, it's too unbelievable. Stop it. No. And yet it happened. And both quarterbacks were sensational in the clutch. Mm-hmm. And Baker really rose and shone last night, and we'll talk more about him later in the show. But it was his best game as a pro to me from start to finish, all things considered.
Yes.
That was the Baker I knew and loved at the University of Oklahoma, where he was operating, using his legs as well as his arm, constantly on the move, rollouts, scrambles, buying time, running with the football, scrambling for a touchdown, sliding into the end zone, just full of you-know-what and vinegar, because he's at his best when he is at his hot doggy most arrogant. That's what fuels him. That's who he is. And that was vintage Baker. And yet Lamar came back in from nowhere when I least expected it and said, no, I got you. And remember, they're obviously from the same draft. And you don't think Lamar wanted to stick it to Baker in Baker's house? Yeah. It's literally Baker's house. We have to watch Baker's house every other commercial, and we had to all last night. And I still say the target he keeps painting on his back gets bigger and bigger. But last night, he lived up to it.
I think every progressive commercial is shot in that stadium.
It is. No, it is. So Lamar, and by the way, there was one vintage moment when Lamar scored early and threw the ball against a sign up against the dog pound.
And he caught it.
Yeah, and it came right back to him. And I said, this is magical, man. This might be his night. And then Baker scored when he slid into the end zone, and he fired a ball at the sign on the side of the stadium.
Don't think he wasn't trying to bounce it off the wall and catch it.
He was. He was trying to do it. And yet it came down to those crucial few minutes when we saw Lamar leave the football field. And the first thing I thought of on injury was this play. I'd like to show one play, and it happened with about 6.5 minutes left in the third quarter. And this is where I thought Lamar went a little over the edge.
I know the play you're talking about.
And he took off running, and you got to slide or you're not going to last in this league.
They made him cut back, and
he just said, I got, oh, God. Yeah. And when he did that, I said, no, you can't. That's like... That's RG3 revisited kind of a play. God bless him.
Skip, it's always that play because you see that guy that's making you cut back, but he's making you cut back into traffic because this guy's coming with cruise intention. And I don't know if he really saw him.
He did not, and he got rocked.
Yeah.
So Jamison Hensley, who covers for ESPN.com, the Ravens, does a great job. He wrote in his piece today that Lamar, and remember, he did have he caught COVID. You know, he had to go through a COVID bout, and they reported last night on the telecast that he slept for 10 straight days. So he got rocked by the virus.
Right. He wasn't asymptomatic. He had symptoms.
He definitely did. Jamison Hensley writes that Lamar began experiencing cramps in his right arm with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Well, that would be about a minute and a half after that play.
Right.
Well, was it from that? Was it some kind of spinal type where you're getting shooting pains down your arm? Is it some kind of stinger type situation? I don't know.
Right.
So that was my first thought. When he went to the locker room, I thought, uh-oh, did he get hurt on that play?
Right.
Then they reported cramps, and Jamison Hensley goes on to write that he began experiencing cramps in both legs. Well,
you can tell the way he was running, Skip. He was running stiff-legged.
A little gingerly?
Yeah.
Okay, now back to you. You played this game at the highest level. You're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. From my experience covering the game, it is very rare to suffer cramps